Hello and welcome to the Overton Audios podcast. My name's Connor Chadwick.
And I'm Dale Patton.
And on today's podcast, I will be discussing with Connor J. Sumner, Aidan O'Connor and Isaac Blake, the Doctor Who Fragmented series.
Talking with Mark Bray and Tom from MB Homeland about their latest fan film, A Blip in Time.
Ooh.
So chatters. For everyone else, we're well into the new year, but for us, this is the first podcast recording of the new year.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is indeed. Now, here is the slight problem with it, right? Because now, the slight problem, not a problem with us recording in 2024, but the problem with what number podcast this is. Now, I believe this is podcast number 47.
Yes.
However, if you include the little special episodes we've done, this is actually podcast 50.
Oh dear.
Yes, because we did a special podcast called 10A, where we talked about Revolution of the Daleks when it came out all those years ago. We then did another special one, 15A, which was when me and Chelsea Lagan recorded something for the podcast, but we talked for 2.5 hours. So that became its own podcast. And then there was another one where I talked to Michael Cox for nearly 2 hours, and we kept all that in as well. Because it was just a general good conversation, I had to cut it down for the podcast. But those were 3 extra episodes. So technically, whilst this is number 47 of the official podcast and not a special episode, it is technically the 50th one we've made. And the problem is that we have got something special for the 50th one. But we're still 3 away from it. Even though that would be number 53.
Yes.
It's a bit like it's a bit like trying to make sense of what number Doctor we're on now in terms of what incarnation or face or body, because nobody knows anymore.
Exactly. Sorry. Or it's like we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who when the show has been off the air for 16 years.
Yes, I suppose so. Yeah, but nonetheless, yes.
But nonetheless, yes, happy 50-ish podcast, sir.
Yes, indeed. And the first podcast recording of 2024. Now, the plan is actually, as well, this is actually going to be the last, what you might call trilogy, before obviously number 50. Because after that's done, after number 49 is done, we're going to have number 50 go out as normal, but then the podcast is going to kind of shift a little bit. We're going to go into something a little bit different. We're not going to be strictly monthly anymore. The reason why we're staying monthly for these last 3 is because we've got a very, very busy 3 months. There's been a lot coming out on Overton Audios. There's been a lot of collaborations going on this early in the year. That there's a lot to talk about and a lot to discuss. But I kind of want to change up the podcast, because when we get to 50, that's 50 months of podcasting, and that's nearly by that point it'll be nearly 4.5. No, it will be 4 years of us doing it by then.
Yeah,
because we started April, and I believe number 49 will be out in April, so it'll be around 4 and a bit years, if anything.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be strictly monthly anymore, because as I've changed up the schedule a bit, we're not having stuff come out so bi-weekly anymore. And plus, as well as that, we are sharing the Overton Audio SoundCloud now, as it's been rebranded the Toverton Audio SoundCloud, which is sharing a space with TT Productions 23, which is run by Abby Louise, who has been on this podcast a lot last year with the Big Finish review segment. She wanted a place to host stuff on a SoundCloud-like platform, and it helps that me and her are already a couple. So
indeed.
It just kind of helps that she'll be able to host her stuff on an actual listening platform. She wanted they do have a Spotify for their audios, but it's not really worked in years, and they've been trying to recover the account. So because we're doing so much collaborations at the moment. Like there's a series we're doing called Doctor Who Multiversal, which involves Overton Audios, TT Productions 23, and DWEM, the Doctor Who Expansive Multiverse, which we'll get onto in a minute. We we just decided to collaborate on that SoundCloud. So there's a lot going to be coming out there. So Wednesdays are kind of her day on that SoundCloud for re-releases. And then
Mm.
Saturdays, I've stuck to always having Saturdays. Um, but as a result, for regarding the scheduling for the podcast, um, because I've got things strictly coming out in the podcast, we run the risk of making these podcasts incredibly short and to a point where we don't
Mhm.
really have a conversation anymore because we'll with yourself, you've been actively working on Fractured Timeline. There are also some other projects you've been working on for Overton Audios in the background that we're not talking about yet. Um,
Yeah.
like some of them we've actually been working on them for about 2 years, and you know which one I mean. Um, there's
Mhm.
well, and then there's another one that's been in for about another year as well. But like when we talk about that, we can actually talk about it properly. But because I'm cutting down, like rather than having 2 volumes a month or like everything like that, it's being very much streamlined so that people can follow it better. The podcast doesn't work monthly anymore because the amount of content coming out has gone down. So
Yeah.
unless we have, for example, like in this podcast is quite big because we've been working on lots of stuff for Dwem. And then we've also had a new podcast series come out this month. And then as well as that, you've been talking like as you said this morning, as you said this morning. Hopefully I haven't been talking that much. But as you said at the beginning of the podcast, we've actually talked to other fan creators, and in fact, they've come back to the podcast to talk about their 60th anniversary thing. So
Yeah.
unless we
And
have
that's something I would like.
unless sorry, carry on, Dan.
So that's something I like to do with the podcast. Try bring other creators in to discuss their projects because there's a couple of
Mm.
fan projects out there that have piqued my interest, and I would like to hear more about them. Like because you hear a lot about it because they talk about them a lot for Twitter, but they don't have like an open platform to talk about. So I would like to eventually do because that's we did that initially at the start of the podcast. We brought a lot of other creators on. But as time went on, it became more about the stuff that was coming on the channel. So maybe there could be the
Mm.
potential of bringing that back later in the podcast this year.
Well, yeah, that's another thing too, is that if we're only going to really like, for example, I can imagine this podcast becoming more every 2 months, because then we'd have 2 volumes to talk about, because we always work in basically a 2 segment structure
Hmm.
podcast. So it would feel wrong just to have one, and then try and shoehorn everything on in the end, or shoehorn it all in the beginning. It's always got a nice beginning, middle, and end, and in between that are these little segments. But again, that's something we can review later down the line. For now, for now, shall we get on with the podcast, sir?
Absolutely, sir.
So I guess in that case, we take ourselves to the conversation I had with Connor J. Sumner, Aidan O'Connor, and Isaac Blake on Fragmented.
Come on, old girl. Hang in there. You can do this. You can get us home. I know you can.
This has me worried. Very worried.
You know, Doctor, I reckon that flying saucer disappeared somewhere over the other side of the river, in the direction of Sloane Square. Well, somewhere over there anyway.
Yes, never mind about the flying saucer, my boy. That suggestion of yours. About the plague. Supposing one of them's been in that water. They're bound to be contaminated with some sort of bacteria.
Well, they're not likely to drink that, are they?
Well, the smell of it's enough. Anyway, let's go further afield, shall we? Come along.
Stop.
First man.
Yes, with irregular headpieces on.
Oh, follow me, Chesterton.
Yes, we're close. Time alignment almost achieved. Come on, old girl.
And welcome back to the podcast. And I am here with Connor J. Sumner,
It me.
Aidan O'Connor,
Hello.
and Isaac Blake.
Ah!
Now we're here to talk about the Navy Doctor series called Fragmented, which
Indeed.
has come out on the Doctor Expansive Multiverse YouTube channel. And by the time this goes out, it'll be out.
Indeed.
So,
Yeah.
but if you haven't
Yeah.
watched it, there will be spoilers ahead about the stories.
So pause this. Go
yeah.
and watch all. Go through all
Listen
6.
to it.
Yep.
Yes.
Listen to
Yep.
all of them, and then come back.
Listen
Exactly.
to the series.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, firstly, a good place to begin is I remember around, I think it was this time last year, I remember, Isaac, you sending
Yes.
everyone a cover art of the first episode.
Yeah.
I remember you editing it as well. When
Yeah.
you were saying screenshots of you editing it on Premiere Pro, and you had the cover on there and everything like that. And
Yeah.
so where did the idea for Fragmented come from? Like, what made
So-
you want to start there?
Obviously, just to set the basis of, well, when it was near the beginning of the WEM and obviously What for Fall now, there was quite few of us, and I thought it'd be a good place, obviously to introduce the Navy Doctor, but also to establish the basis of the timeline.
Oh, yeah.
So I was thinking of doing a sort of like a multi-doctor thing, where the Navy Doctor sort of gets displaced through his own timeline and has to go through each of his past incarnation and future to end up where in his original timeline. I remember vaguely I was on call with Aidan originally.
Yeah.
Me and Aidan, we were talking about the idea of what we were gonna do with Navy to start off, and then we came up with the idea for Fragmented, and then I just went away, came up with the idea. Me and Aidan, we started to write down the first story idea which came out to be the Strayo Siren, and yeah, we started from there, and then obviously I asked everyone at the time if they were happy to have their Doctor meet Navy. And well, yeah, I mean,
It acted very much as a nice episodic showcase of that era, of those eras.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
like with Burgundy, you got like Navy was essentially having to not, well, I suppose the right word would be a sort of reliving of those old moments in life.
Yeah.
In his many lives anyway. And he's going up and down this timeline. He's going from future down to like past, and then back up to the present.
He
and it's all
goes
over.
he goes straight from the Arcadian universe with Burgundy straight to Neera's very beginnings with Blonde, and he continues from there.
Yeah.
because didn't we say like it was a good like base starting point for like, because he ends up in another universe, but then when he's sent back, he's sent back down the
Yeah, we said
That's-
that because the dimensional stabilizer was splintered.
Yeah, because
He was able to get back into his universe.
Yeah, because initially,
in the timeline.
initially it's come across like, and obviously I'm going to talk like full spoilers here anyway. Just it's up to the viewer listening if they want to, if they would rather find out here or through listening, preferably through listening to the story. So go and look at them. But essentially, because of what Davros has done, that's what bumped Navy into the Arcadian universe. Because
Yes,
essentially,
it is.
the whole 6-episode series is actually, apart from the first episode, it's going up the regeneration cycle.
It is,
That's
yes,
going
it
in
is.
order, apart from the Burgundy one. But it makes sense narratively because of the timeline being altered. Navy just drops out of the timeline into the Arcadian universe just for a brief moment, goes
Indeed,
back to
yeah,
find things are
yeah.
still shifting. And I think that was a nice kind of like, that was a good like, it's a good like little connection point, something that you sort of notice sometimes maybe as a bit of an afterthought, going, oh yeah, that makes sense, because they literally reference it in the finale.
Indeed.
But no, it was so something that you make. So yeah, episode 1 came out in May last year,
It
and
did.
then in August, because you were in America at the time.
I was in America.
I ended up editing episode 2, didn't I?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was with the blonde doctor. Were
Mhm.
you happy with the edit I did?
Oh, I remember, well, I had no doubt that you were going to do great with it. So
Aw.
obviously when I had my free time on my break, I saw that released, I gave it a listen. I was like, this is exactly what I wanted. So yeah, I was really happy with it.
And then of course, one of the big things was that university started.
Yeah.
And then you had possibly the heaviest semester. Like,
Yeah. I obviously it was like working non-stop. And I rarely got time
oh yeah,
to
you also had a job.
do anything I wanted. Yeah, and also the job as well. So it was like I rarely had time to do anything that I wanted to do. It was all focused on like my actual real life, and I wanted to put so much into it. That's why obviously Fragmented 3 took so long to release.
Enter
But
Sumner and Aidan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
But
Hello.
that is but that's where because you'd edited half of Fragmented 3. Jed ended up writing that one, didn't he?
he did.
It was a difficult one, wasn't it? Because his doctor is so specific.
Yeah.
Wall breaking, and Jed knows what he wants to do with that doctor. It just sort of made a bit of sense then, didn't it? But it was nice to hear Groovy in a long form story.
Yeah.
Because the way that he's portrayed in the Elysian universe in the What Fourth Wall YouTube channel is in a series of short stories. Hearing him in about, what was it, 35 to 40 minute? Hearing him in that.
Yeah, it was I think it was like 30 to 35 minutes, I think
fair.
the episode was.
It was just nice hearing
Yeah.
him in a longer form story, but also because there were other doctors there who can't break the fourth wall much like he can. It was nice to see that kind of dynamic explored.
Yeah.
And it was like a nice return of an old villain from Groovy's era as well. So it was like
Yeah.
very much a sort of look into that.
I have just checked. It was 37 minutes and 8 seconds.
Oh my
Fantastic.
word. And
Wow.
then, following on from that, we had the Legend of the Grenning Empire as Mr. Aidan O'Connor here wrote.
Yeah. So I got asked by Isaac to work at that one and kind of write it, and I kind of went for a very kind of basically because the cover was there. I kind of looked at it to take inspiration, kind of an idea of what I could do with it, and I just thought I want to try and not just do.
Yes, the covers were all made in advance and announced, weren't they?
Yeah. So in my head, I was just like, I'm gonna try and do something interesting here. So it was kind of like an alien empire, not necessarily like English or whatever, but I have it and just have it be like an adventure because you're doing something with, say, the techno doctor.
Well,
you're trying
that's
to
what I
think.
suppose. It was a kind of weird writing a story in the Elysian universe, but it wasn't for your doctor at all.
Yeah, but I mean, it was like, obviously I was there like at the beginning with Fragmented 1, kind of seeing what Isaac was doing. So I kind of had an idea of where he was heading with the story. And then as things went along, I just got an idea of Navy's character. And obviously we've seen a lot of techno because obviously that, I'm about, recently, if it's out now at the moment. The interval just came out with
It came
all
out
the
tonight
Elysian
as of when
doctors.
we're recording this.
Exactly. But techno has just formed just a very interesting character over all those different stories that he's been involved with. And I just, with this story, I just went, he's going to be like, Navy's the one who's just going to be really on the mission, trying to just, help out. But he's also got this other thing going on of trying to get back to his place in the timeline. But then techno just does not care. Techno's like, I was just enjoying my day, and then you come in.
Well,
That's how I always picture.
a very long Thursday.
Oh, indeed. And I mean, that was the thing. Like, I was trying to make it out that he thinks, because, I feel like there are moments where techno does think, oh, I finally made it. I'm finally out of this. And then he's it's like as if he just turns around and he just sees another doctor. He's like, oh no.
Yeah.
And it was just I I really think Rory did a really good job with it. And he gave me a lot of tips on how to kind of write his character, and even, did a bit of a little bit of ad-libbing to help, move it in the right direction. And like for the scenes that I was working with specifically, like if I could name one scene other than the last scene between the two doctors, which I thought was, I think I liked how I wrote that one, because I feel like it really, just set Techno's mind to rest that, look, you will get out of this whole multi-doctor thing with Thursday. It's just gonna take a while. It's like, I'm sorry to tell you, you're gonna suffer, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
But the one scene I do like is when the Black Knight's been defeated along with the dragon, and the Squire feels like he's developed as a character, only in a short space of time, and then you just have Techno standing over the Black Knight, and just he goes very Seven. I think and Rory's told me he really likes that scene as well, particularly for that, using the line like ashes to ashes, dust to dust,
Yeah.
because that was from Remembrance of the Daleks, when the Seventh Doctor talks the Supreme Dalek into, exploding itself. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah. And everyone very much enjoyed the episode anyway. It was a nice it was a nice sort of, I mean, I know I'm using this word, but it was a nice interval between between what was episode 3 is like which was being considered the mid-series finale, and obviously the loose 2-part finale, which was 5 and 6. Now, moving on to that, Mr. J. Sumner.
It's me. Hello.
The man who has had lots of stories as Venture, but only one solo story.
Yep.
You've appeared in the Singularity Saga 5-parter, the Singularity Saga prequel, the Singularity Saga epilogue, and then you've appeared in this 2-parter, and then at Christmas you had the short trips.
Yes. Volume 1 is happening. I'd just like to preface. I'm gonna get, 2024 New Year's resolutions. Get a bloody series off the ground. It is gonna happen if it kills me. But anyway, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, how important was it for you? And well, I suppose it still continues to be important. But how important was it for you to make sure that Venture isn't, I suppose, known for these multi-doctor stories or overshadowed, considering the fact that technically Venture made their first appearance in the Singularity Saga, which was only 2 months ago.
Yeah. No, it is very important to me, which is why I'm, making it such a point that the first volume is coming out. It will come out later this year. I've got, I think two of the episodes are fully written, and a couple more have been like started writing, but it will come out later this year. And I want to do obviously more solo stuff than multi-doctor stuff, because that is like nightmare scenario at the minute for me. Just be the one that's characterized as, oh, this is one that shows up with a bunch of other doctors all the time. No, I want, obviously I want to be in the same way as everyone else, be, held my own, be just to be able to stand on my own.
That's what makes this 2-parter interesting, because this isn't canon to Venture Doctor Adventures or timeline at
Indeed.
all. Yeah. You're playing.
This is a different timeline.
Yes, which is explained in more so in episode 6 and Fragmented 6, more so than 5. But it's explained that when Davros changed the timeline, his point in time and the first Doctor's era, where they'd gone back and changed it, were basically sewed together. Like if you take a bit of fabric, two pieces of fabric, and sew the corners together, it makes this kind of loop.
Yeah.
I always refer that to Interstellar. You know, have you seen that? Have you seen that film Interstellar?
Yeah, I've seen Interstellar.
It's when he talks about the wormhole, and he pokes two holes through a piece of paper and connect them, and it creates a closed loop. That was the idea behind what had happened there. Davros, who changing the timeline, had made it so that all of his history became present day, became the new current event. The only problem was Navy didn't get erased. He just fell into the Arcadian universe. So thus a Navy that actually completely saved the Navy Doctor.
Yeah.
Which is why we go slightly out of Doctor order there. But nonetheless, it saves him from literally the first Doctor regenerating into a new version, a completely new version of Navy. And obviously, you know, it jumps back a regeneration to Venture. So this version of Venture is now actually the second Doctor. But we were very clear on, and I think it's been made clear, and certainly through the way that you've acted it, when you look at Singularity Saga, when you look at the short trips you've done, and then you look at this and you're like, he's a bit posh. He's a bit too well-mannered. And then, but that's the thing, throughout the story, as they start to win, and as he spends more time with the Navy Doctor, the true persona of the Venture Doctor comes out. Now, towards the end, you could argue, no, he does become the Venture Doctor in the end, personality-wise. Like his last line is actually something that the Venture Doctor would say. But that's just the personality. That's not the history of the man.
Exactly.
That's just that's a sign that this is over, because he's now aligned himself with the correct timeline. He's just still wrong. So they just, so that's why we had to blow him up, sadly. We treated that version of Venture so poorly in our script.
He
got bullied.
He had a rough go of it.
And my favorite,
you know what?
My favorite bit was when he'd fixed the timeline, and he went, "Oh, Ian, Barbara, and Susan, are they alive?" And the Navy was like, "Yes." And you go, "Oh, brilliant. Can I see them?" And the Navy just goes, "No."
No, you can't.
And then you just go, and then you just go, "Oh."
Yeah.
It's just so sad.
Yeah, the boys had a rough go of it in this story. And I regret to admit, it's not going to get this bad, but it's not going to get much better for him. But he's going to keep smiling. And that ties into how important the characterization of Venture is for me. Because in the same way that it's a similar sort of thought process that that Matt Tyrell had with the Alacrity Doctor, in that we've got a lot of doctors that go round and are just sort of, they take on, they take more of a dark, gritty personality and the way they carry themselves off. I wanted to do one where he just loves life. He loves being alive and being the Doctor. And a lot of the time, a lot of the things he does is for the laugh. And that is a really, really important part of writing him for me. In a similar way that I don't like, obviously I don't want to be too posh, because I'm not too posh. A lot of writing Venture just comes from how I would act in that sort of situation. If I was the Doctor, that is how I would be as the Doctor. And I don't mean, obviously, I don't mean like if I was playing, I mean if me as a person was not Connor J. Sumner, if this was the Doctor, that's how I write Venture. And it's really specific, but when it's done right, I'm very proud of it and I'm very happy with it.
It's funny you say that, because arguably I'd say the way that I'm going to be playing, obviously it's been announced now in the interval.
Yeah. Welcome.
That's how I'd actually argue that I am as Defiant. Cravat, I would not ever react like half the stuff that Cravat does. Cravat's just like, oh, I'd be like, what the hell? what's going on?
Yeah.
That's the thing. I sort of thought I put a bit more, like, for example, I put a bit more of me into Defiant, whereas Cravat was always aimed to be a bit more Hartnell-esque in the first place.
Yeah.
But no, I like that, and then that in a way we've kind of done the same thing there, Sumner. We've done,
Yeah.
you know, you've played
Yeah.
two ventures. One was more Hartnell than the other. In the end, I do that to everyone.
I mean, I think like the way I look with, like, say, the Alacrity and Venture Doctors, it kind of like it really actually ties in with the actual 60th of the main show, like, because you could argue that 14 was get it going into the darker elements of the Doctor, and then you just have 15 who's just like, I just want to have a laugh.
Yeah.
Just want to get back out there, you know.
Well, yeah, exactly. But overall, I think it was. Oh, actually, no, there's something else we haven't spoken about.
Cheers.
There's something else after Fragmented 6, isn't there?
Ah, yes.
Oh, there is. There is.
Yeah.
There is.
The live action epilogue, which we shot last summer.
Oh.
Yeah. What a filming day
it
that
doesn't
was.
kick it off, but it's the second chapter, but kind of told out of order. It's literally told in reverse order, which is what I've been nicknaming Kiwi's Last Day. Because it ends with Mastermind, and then this one's the middle one anyway. So technically, it's in order. This one, it's in the middle.
Yeah.
And then the next, there's another part of Multiversal, part 5, is specifically, which, as well as that, part 3 will be coming out a week after the epilogue. The Fragmented.
Hey.
There's so much live action content on the Doctor Expansive multiverse. But yeah, so Isaac, you wrote the epilogue quite a while ago, because we filmed that in August.
I did. Yeah. I remember I wrote it, I think, in February.
Yeah.
And I wrote it, and I pitched the idea to you, and then that's obviously when I came back from America. I obviously came back to Chelmsford, and I was like, oh, I better get my acting cap on.
Your doctor's costume with you to America, so you could bring it straight from
Yeah,
America.
just so I could have it, because I lived in Liverpool at the time, so it would be quite difficult to obviously go back to Liverpool, then travel all the way back up. So I brought it with me.
2 months in advance.
Yeah, 3 months in advance.
Oh, 3, blimey. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 months.
And then we went and went out for about 5 hours. I think it was. It took about 5 hours to film that.
Long hours.
And it was good. We had Aidan also stood there with lights.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, you know, wait, actually, is this a question? Is this coming out when the epilogue has come out?
It's coming out on the
What, this segment?
Yes.
It will all be out.
Oh, all right. So guys, if you see a certain when you see a certain thing happen and you start to see a bit of lights, that's me in the background, literally just I feel like I was doing a dance, just moving the lights. Honestly, I was surprised the lads didn't start laughing, because I was just there, just like, whoa, whoa.
You were there in your burgundy doctor costume, just without the jacket.
Yeah.
And the scorching heat as well.
Yeah. I mean,
rolled up sleeves, orange and blue lighting.
Actually, I think I know what happened. Were we taking photos that day? Because I might have just
yes, everyone had got dressed and were taking all their doctor's photos with the lot, because we had a large group of us at the time. And they all went to like a Weatherspoons whilst we were filming.
Yeah. And so I think I just kind of left it on.
Fair. Yeah. And then shot about 5 hours. We had an edit kind of done for a few months, and then it was just as we kind of got, you know, moving with Fragmented again, that we looked to it. And I think didn't we get all the visual effects done in like a week?
We did.
Yeah.
We did.
We got done a week.
Then we just finalized it, sent it off to Mr. Anthony Tremaine to score.
Yes.
He scored it within a week or so, and then it's done,
who also scored Fragmented 5 and 6 alongside yours truly. So
yes.
Best of both worlds.
You get the best of both worlds.
Thanks for that, Aidan.
We must cue the victorious chicken noises. No,
I think honestly, like having, by the time obviously this podcast will be out, like having everything out, it's such a relief now.
Yeah.
Because like I remember back in like 2021, 2020, I've always like really wanted my own like series in a way, and to finally have accomplished it.
It's also
And
a
obviously
hurdle. It's
thanks
also a
to-
bit of a
thanks to everyone,
hurdle,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
When you're starting, you're like, oh God, how do I do this? How am I supposed to do this? The first one that you end up doing, by the time you finished it, you're going, oh, I know what to do now.
Yeah, yeah. That's actually a fun fact. The Strayo Siren was the first ever audio that I've actually edited
Yeah.
There you go then.
as well.
Yeah.
So
And look at you
I
now.
mean,
right-
it was
right
a
before
hefty
Christmas,
episode.
yeah, and now when it's came down to obviously like to all the other ones and all the short trips that I've made and will continue to make, it just got the gist of it now. Like once you've cracked the egg, then you can just
Yeah.
move from there and you know what you're doing.
No, exactly. And
Yeah.
you're the first. Well, I was gonna say first. Well, I suppose you are, but at least on the Dwem YouTube channel. Aside from Kiwi, you're the second Dwem Doctor to have a full series out.
Yeah.
Soon, obviously, Aidan, you're working on.
Must be nice.
It is.
Must be very nice.
Aidan, you're working on Burgundy at the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I think by the time this is out, I think the first there'll be a remaster of Vita Nova, which was Burgundy's first proper
Well,
live
it
action.
depends. It depends because this interview is likely to go up in two different places. So one will be out earlier than the other.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then after that, then yeah, you got a few other things. But I mean, like Sumner, I just want to get some stories out this year.
Yeah.
And then of course, like as you mentioned Sumner earlier, you are working on Venture Volume 1 and some
Indeed.
other little associated spin-offs that we won't talk so in depth about right now.
There's a clue for you.
Oh, that's a tease. What a tease.
But yes, is there anything else anyone wanted to add about Fragmented whilst we're here? Like anyone wanted to say anything about the production or how they feel about it or
I'm just happy that it's out, and obviously like with what's next with Navy, 2024.
I suppose
Later that year.
What might be interesting to add as well is that this isn't actually the earliest point for Navy at all. It's the middle of
No, it isn't. There's
a
there's
beginning
some
that's still unexplored, and there's a future that's unexplored. This is the middle.
There's a beginning which will be explored over time, and I think that's probably in terms of content that'll probably be explained probably a bit more than the current stuff. But with the way that Series 1 is going for Navy, after it's set directly after Fragmented, so right after the Man Who Fell to Time. So
very good.
Oh
yes.
Anyone else want to mention anything?
I mean, like we've mentioned it already. I mean, Multiversal is coming out after this.
Yes.
Yes. Multiversal will be talking about in another segment, I'm sure. A segment of what most people call the future.
Future.
Yep.
Future.
But yes, all right then. Well, thank you all of you for being present for this little podcast segment.
Of course.
And
no problem.
We shall return back to the podcast. And welcome back to the podcast. And myself and Daniel are still here. Hello, sweet Daniel.
I'm still here. He hasn't replaced me again.
Oh, sir. Oh, sir.
That was a traumatizing time for me.
Oh, but yes, we had a
Yeah,
little chat about Fragmented there.
it was a
So-
very interesting chat indeed. Very interesting series, which concludes relatively soon, I believe. I think it's is it this weekend as of recording this podcast?
Yes, this podcast. Yeah. This is also another thing. We're recording this in possibly the last minute, so we're recording this on the 31st of January on the evening of that day, and the finale, Fragmented 6, is out on the 3rd of February. It comes out at the exact same time as this podcast. And then the epilogue, which is a visual short that was shot last summer, that'll be coming out the week after.
Yeah.
So technically it's already like it's basically a week or so from now it'll all be done.
Very nice, very nice. But
Indeed.
yes, that was interesting chats. So what are we jumping on to next, my dear friend?
Well, I thought, it's been, a little while. Why don't we do some comments reading?
We peek at the comments.
Yes, there's not really been much out this month. It's been rather a quiet month of podcast series rather than audio dramas. So we've only really got to read maybe 2 or 3 videos. I think there's the trailer and the final episode for Transcending Time. But before that was Short Trips, wasn't it? The re-release of the King of Rock Short Trips
Yes.
that I made like 4 years ago.
I'm not going to it, but I remember the origins very fondly of King of Rock.
Oh yes.
Yeah, we reused the podcast segment from last month, but yeah, I just remember like it all just came from the visual intrigue that I made that stupid Photoshop edit,
Oh yeah.
and now it's back in
Mm.
all its glory.
Yes. Would you like to have a gander at the comments, sir?
Shall we gander the comments? Why not?
Oh.
So, first comment we got is from Michael Cox, dear Michael Cox. This was great. It just goes to show that sometimes less is more. The stripped back storytelling style instantly puts one in the midst of this attractive historical. As Thomas notes, an adventure involving Elvis is very groovy indeed. The Sick Vagina must be rather special. On that day, both William Hartnell, 1906, and Elvis Presley, 1935 were Elvis Presley and William Hartnell. Well, besides the year, had the same birthday. Interesting. Food for thought, that is. And then we have Thomas and James. We have it was lovely to hear the short trip again. I really I remember really enjoying it, and I could definitely agree it was still a great. I could definitely agree that it was great. It's still great to hear Cravat and Julia meet one of the coolest musicians of the 20th century. Very groovy indeed. Then we have Ryan Dumpany. I think yeah, 60. Another great story, guys. Keep them coming. Indeed.
Indeed. Yeah, it was nice to re-release that. You can really hear how much we've got better at audio editing though.
Well, say it that way, but
yeah,
what's nice
for me
is
anyway.
What's nice, it's a different sort of genre of audio adventures.
But
So
it's what got me into doing some of the audiobooks that I did in 2021, and I did some in 2022 as well.
yeah,
It's what got me into it.
I would love to do more short trips. I released one recently for the Fractured Timeline channel, which is just a wee plug.
Which one was it?
It was the Void of the Damned.
Void of the Damned. Yes, indeed, and that was very good as well. I was not expecting it when it was accidentally released.
Yes, because I was like, oh, actually, I pressed publish when I should have put on scheduled, and then
the horror.
Then the moment I put the scheduled after it being released for like 10 seconds, boy, I'm being serious, 10 seconds. Tyler's message saying, "They're not releasing this."
I sent I sent because I've got tech like YouTube kind of the subscriber bell thing alerts on your channel. So
Yeah.
I just got the notification the moment it went out, and I just screenshot it and sent it to you. And went, what's all this about? And you were like, oh. No, but it's just because I was like, please send me the cover so I can share this.
Yeah. So hopefully more short trips will be a future endeavor for Prism and Overton Audios and
Yes,
it's just
indeed.
it's just a nice way to get stories out, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. But going back to full cast audio dramas, we have the trailer for Transcending Time, the newest one after a year and a couple of months. Last one we had was with the Blonde Doctor and the Eighth Doctor. This one is with the Northern Doctor and the Seventh Doctor. So we have a comment here from Michael Cox saying, Wink Taylor is a wonderful Seventh Doctor. Looking forward to hearing Tegan Harris as Ace. And of course, it's always lovely to hear the Northern Doctor. I think the first fan Doctor I ever watched on YouTube. And that makes sense because Nathan's been doing this since 2007. Like, yeah. And then, of course, we had Nathan himself commenting saying, sounds Ace, which is a very good play on words. And going back onto the episode itself, we have a comment from Yuan the Blue saying, pleasantly surprised by the callback to Peladon and the lullaby. Always a pleasure to have more adventures with Ace and her doctor. And then we have a comment from Gladiator 652004 who said, great multi-doctor story. I liked the Peladon lullaby. I'm surprised that the Northern Doctor, though, does not have a stronger Northern accent. To which Nathan Carter has responded, saying, this is why I was always a little perplexed at being named Northern, which wasn't my naming, as I don't feel my accent is strong enough. Now, I did a little bit of research, right? And I found out where the name of the Northern Doctor actually came from, because it wasn't me either.
Who was it then?
It was DW 2012.
Really?
Yeah, because he appeared in the original, Nathan appeared in the original Eternal Darkness and was just called the Doctor. But then there was an episode called Into the Mind, where I believe it was the Little Red Doctor was going into, well, their mind, and found Nathan's Doctor in there. But in the credits, it said the Northern Doctor.
Oh, all right. And those went by my head, but yeah, I remember like especially when it came to that original timeline, we are just like, who do we name everyone? And I was just messaging everyone. Everyone was just giving names. And I can't remember who gave Northern. Must have been
Yeah, it was something that I brought to Nathan's attention, going, you were named this. Did you want to come back? And this was the name you were given in the credits. And Nathan said yes to it all, but it wasn't. He ultimately didn't choose it, but he did say yes to it. So
yeah. Well, here's a question for you, Mr. Carter. If you were to choose your doctor's name, who would you call it? That's not an open invitation to change the name, but just curious what his 2 cents on it would be.
True. It's just a
Like,
shame.
it's same with me. I never called myself the Irish Doctor.
Didn't you?
No, that was never my choice.
Blimey. Okay.
No, again, that was just sort of like a name that was sort of like pushed on me. I think it's the same sort of way that's Northern. Like, I was never ever titled the Irish Doctor. I was just a doctor in that timeline who happened to be Irish. Like, oh, the Irish Doctor. I was like, okay, to be named after my nationality instead of anything else. Okay, fair enough. But yeah, I think it was like when I started first time properly. That's when it sort of became like, yeah, the Irish Doctor's the proper title. I'm like, I don't really have a choice, do I? And like, no, you don't.
I remember sitting around for ages figuring out like my doctor name, and I remember feeling when I said the Cravat Doctor, I remember sitting there for a little while feeling like it feels really, I don't know, I couldn't think of another name, and I just was really worried that it was really awful.
No, Fat Doctor Situ because
It's settled well. It's settled well. A lot of people have really kind of opened their arms to it, which I'm really glad about.
Indeed.
And
It just means
obviously,
you can never be seen without a cravat for the rest of your doctor's life.
well, I wouldn't want it any other way.
Good.
Yeah, but then of course, you've got like the young doctor. I picked that because Pete was in. Well, I was. Yeah, yes, kind of self-explanatory. But that's mainly because we were remastering his old fan films from when he was 12 or 13. So we called him the young doctor for that, and then we weren't at the time and going to do more further adventures with him. So as a result, he looks like any other Doctor now, but he's called the Young Doctor. But yet he looks that he's in fact older than some of the people who are playing Doctors now. He's older than me, you know what I mean? But like, it's because his incarnation started off very young, started
Yes.
off as a young boy, as a teenager, and grew up, and that is where that name comes from. And then of course you got Blonde. I mean,
Because George has such a gold personality.
indeed. We took a long time with Alacrity, but we got there in the end. Frontier, that
Was
was
based off a Sonic game, I believe Dom said.
Sonic and a bit of Star Trek with space and New Frontier.
Yeah.
Which is why we keep doubling, or not doubling, we keep saying, like that's why in the Prism 60th, the Cravat Doctor says a New Frontier. It's just reference to Star Trek and thus his Doctor. The Lost Doctor, that was you.
Well, yeah. Oh, to be honest, the Lost Doctor is mainly referring to the fact that they are currently unknown.
Yeah. And of course, we've already talked about Irish. The Philosophical Doctor, that was something that was sat on for a little while, but you did come up with that one.
Yes, I mean, like the Philosophical Doctor, like the thing is, you know the story. I had initially had someone cast, but unfortunately things didn't work out. But
Yeah.
when I was talking with this
Just to
person,
clarify for anyone listening, this was prior to the casting call. So
yeah,
the
yeah,
casting call has since
there was
happened and everything as well now.
yeah, because you mentioned on podcast that there was initially someone cast and we had filmed the regeneration scene, but due to just a few circumstances that it just didn't work out. There's nothing about that person. I mean, me and them are still very close. We're still talking away, so there's no drama there. But I was still talking with them about I really like this Doctor still, and I really would like to cast someone else with it, and they gave like blessing. It was like. Yeah, because it's the idea that a doctor being very more philosophical, really calling back to sort of like the philosophical thinking of like Hartnell and some of the philosophical thinking that Capaldi did, because I like the doctor being a very philosophical person.
Yeah.
You get some of the best doctor moments in that way. So I thought, let's base the entire doctor off that.
Yeah.
And basically, yeah, I've got some adventures planned, but based on complete philosophical lessons.
I mean, there you go.
Yeah. And who else? Well, we obviously got yourself Cravat, but then we have at the very tail end of the furthest Doctor that's in the timeline so far, Elusive.
Yeah. Do you want to know what the original title for the Elusive was? And the Elusive Doctor was, and it wasn't the final title. I was
What?
It was they were called for a time the Detective Doctor. That wasn't, of
The
course,
detective?
going to. Yeah, because I had this idea of them being a bit more like a detective, a little bit more like solving crime, solving mysteries, that sort of thing. Kind of harkening back to a bit more of that. But then as we've developed the storyline a bit more and everything, Elusive really worked a lot better. And it
Yeah.
connected because I sometimes go onto onlinethesaurus.com and type in a word that I'm thinking of to describe them and find a better title, and that's how I found Elusive. A lot of people aren't sure about Elusive and about yet because obviously they've not started. But they will be starting one day, and we'll see how that goes, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
so been two adventures so far between the 60th and the Divergent story.
yes, and that's them. That's actually them still at a very early point in their lives. Or
Indeed,
lives
yeah.
in their life. Because I've got plans for that Doctor and how it's going to work out with them meeting their first companion and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, now that we've read the comments and ended up going through that sort of sidetrack, the other thing I wanted to talk about before we move on to the next segment with MB and Homeland was I wanted to talk about the Dripping Hartnell podcast quickly. Because we were going to have that be a more concurrent series that came out every 2 weeks, but now we're not so sure. But I wanted to talk about it anyway here, so that the option is there if people want to listen to it. Now, the Dripping Hartnell podcast is a podcast with about 4 to 5 hosts, and we discuss Doctor Who episodes we've watched. So, as of when this comes out, the 10th and final episode of the series will have come out, and it will have been us reviewing the Unearthly Child original pilot episode. Now, the reason why we're stopping there, we were planning on doing more. Number one, we've all been incredibly busy, and recording one of these requires us to sit down and watch the episode and then discuss. And then,
Yeah.
as well as that, I'm not always someone who's about the views on the viewership, but the amount of time it takes us to make one of these episodes, comparison to the viewership and engagement it's getting, isn't quite matching it, especially for when it's when it's Overton Audios related, like this podcast. I still want to keep this podcast going because it's specific to the channel's content. Whereas with Dripping Hartnell, it's on a different level. I've already been a part of another podcast that ended early last year, which was the Toverton podcast on TT Productions. But that was just because Abby felt like those podcasts kind of worked better for us rather than her channel. But with the Dripping Hartnell one, I very much enjoyed making it. We initially started out, we actually made the 10 episodes first. And then as the 60th came out and the Christmas special came out, we made those extra episodes. We're still deciding whether or not we'll come back and review those episodes. Sorry, not those episodes, but the new series when it comes back in May. Because we do enjoy sitting down, and because we're going to watch the show anyway, that saves us having to sit down and take time to watch it separately. And we can just come together and do that. And also those ones have better engagement and viewership because they're more relevant to the series. The one that's got the most views in the 10-part series that we've released is actually The Timeless Children, and you can guess why. But we're not going to continue it as we were going to, which was we had a list of different episodes we were going to watch, classic and new. We're not going to continue that for now. But the first 10 episodes were all released on the Overton Audios YouTube channel twice a week for the last 5 weeks. Again, reason for that was we were expecting to start off doing more in February, but I don't think that's going to be happening. So now you've got 10 episodes up and available to watch. But yeah, that's all I was going to say on Dripping Hartnell, really. We were just going to have a larger segment on it, but the fact that we're not going to continue it just means that I'm just going to mention it here, just saying it's there for you to watch. Please do. Yeah.
No worries at all. And yeah, that's fair, man. And maybe one day when the stars align, you'll come back to it. But
yeah, I mean, we had an idea for a couple already, and it might be nice to do just every now and again, not something that's a strict series like we've got, like with the podcast here being monthly or now bi-monthly. Or I say bi-monthly, I mean like every 2 months. That's still a schedule for us, but I suppose we could always just, I think it's now going to become something where we just go, oh, we feel like making this. Okay, then let's do it. That sort of thing.
I mean, everything can come and go, but obviously when Motivation hits, it could come back. But speaking of which, things coming back, MB and Homeland are back with a brand new fan film, a Blip.
Oh,
shall we discuss with them about that, sir?
Oh, yes, please, sir.
Roll that interview. Yes.
Oh.
Why do you cling to this world so dearly, Doctor?
Whatever it is you want, there's a better way.
You told me he was a man of the future.
The only thing that's holding this fraction together is my connection with you.
Ah, good afternoon, Doctor. Mr. Churchill.
And welcome back to the podcast. And in this section, I'm sorry, I blew it out. This is my first interview in years. Be kind. We have MB in Homeland, and we have got Mark Bray and Tom Ford of us. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Daniel. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Dan. Nice to meet you all.
It is good to have you guys back on the podcast because, believe it or not, it has been over 3 years since we last had you guys on the podcast. On episode 8 of the podcast, which was in November 2020. Interesting time, because I think you guys I can't remember where you were with Series 6 at the time. I think you dropped the trailer. We put bits of the trailer in. I think we had a sneaky peek look at one of the episodes on that podcast as well. But I can't remember where you were with the series because of the limitations of the time. I try not to use the P word.
Yeah, I
because,
think
because
yeah.
because Connor said that there is looking out for any time I say that word, because I always say it. I always bring up that event in 2020.
Yeah, no, from memory, I think we were probably roughly halfway through filming Series 6 around that time. It was still about a year away until release, so I want to say we're hopefully well over halfway, maybe a bit more.
Well, you got it out by the initial time you wanted to get out, so kudos to you guys for working through that.
Yeah, I don't know how we did it.
It was
COVID
good
was
fun.
tough. Yeah.
Yeah, difficult times, but I think it was quite a good thing to keep us sane, really.
Exactly. But today we are talking about your guys' 60th mini episode that you released back in November last year, called A Blip in Time, which features a rather dashing cameo by a certain Prism doctor, which everyone considers their favorite.
Wait, the Churchill actor is going to be a prison doctor.
I gave that away, didn't I?
I'm really kidding. No, yes, it did feature you, Daniel, and it was a pleasure collaborating with you. I'm sure Tom would agree.
It was,
Yes,
yeah.
It was a pleasure collaborating with you guys.
On the good lookingness or the collaboration?
So let's talk about planning this thing, because you guys came to me very early on in 2023. I think it was either towards the start of 2023 or end of 2022. You guys were like, you guys wanted to make something for the 60th. So first of all, have you guys always want to do something for the 60th anniversary? Because you were pretty concretely certain that Series 6 was going to be the end, and then was it always like, maybe we'll come back for the 60th, or the 60 came around and that the sort of idea came about, should we, and that just took off by itself?
Yeah, so I don't think there was anything ever set in concrete about doing something for the 60th. I know that we had a call, I believe, I just double checked it was the 7th of Feb 2023, so quite early into 2023. I remember you're right, Series 6 ended, and for better or for worse, there were things that I went away, and I'm sure Tom will agree, there were parts that were like, that could have been done better, or this could have been done better. So there was always this in our conscience of wanting to maybe make something that was a bit more of a resolution than voting for which ending you wanted. And I remember I didn't look at the channel for nearly 2 years. I didn't post much, or if I did, it was like the odd uni short film. And I really spent time just focusing on university courses, focusing on my own short films, my own hobbies, my own freelance stuff. But I felt like there was something missing. There was something missing that has been sadly a part of me since I was 8. So when you take something away from you you've been doing since you were 8, suddenly your body starts to be like, what am I doing? Like, what's my purpose? Like, what do I want to be? And yes, like around about this time last year, I started rewatching bits of Doctor Who. I started rewatching bits of Series 6, and it kind of coincided with the channel suddenly was making a lot of shorts. So you'll notice MB Homeland made a floodload of shorts around this time last year, around January.
Yeah.
And that was primarily because I was going back and going, that'd be great to do. That'd be great to do as a short. That's a great memory. And yeah, it kind of reignited this flame that had since been out for a long time. And I'm sure we'll touch on it later in the call, but it's a flame that I'm struggling personally to put out again.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's always a thing with I think everyone, when they do a fan film, they're like, yes, we're at the ending, but now you leave it for a while and you're like, I've got that crave urge to make something again, and it won't leave.
Yeah.
Go away.
Yeah.
It's somewhat of a curse, a little bit, somewhat of a curse. But
Definitely.
you feel that you want to make something a bit more sort of ceremoniously a bit of an epilogue, maybe epilogue to yeah. I get that a lot.
Yeah, well, there's two ways of looking at it. You can look at it as an epilogue or a prologue to something else.
Well, I'll get more to that in the future. Well, we'll get more to
I
that.
don't know. I don't
Podcast.
know.
Ooh, teasing,
But,
teasing.
yeah, I'd also like to just throw out. I remember taking. Do you remember Tom Ford? We went on a walk, and this was how I introduced Tom Ford to it very early on. We went on a walk through two tunnels, and I sort of pitched the idea and what your thoughts
Yeah.
were on that and stuff, because I think you were probably very against it to begin with, unless I'm incorrect.
I think I was. Well, I mean, it's been a messy past year. I think leaving uni and graduation from film, you're just not really sure what you want to do. But yeah, I guess maybe in a way it felt like I was going backwards slightly. But looking at it now, I'm like, oh yeah, right choice, definitely. Because I think it's a shame just to like shut out completely and just be like, yeah, buy this. Yeah, we're not touching this again ever. Because we got stuff like a whole TARDIS interior set build. I think it's a shame to see stuff like that, so, just not be used anymore. I think, and then see now that we've ended up stuff like the locations we secured and Steve, our fantastic actor of Churchill. I think that was an absolute gold mine find.
Big milestone, yeah.
Exactly. But like you guys also came into this with a lot more. I'd say like you guys graduated university, then you went into this here. So do you feel like you guys came into this with a little more technical know-how and a bit more of a bit more appreciation for the art form of film than you did probably going into the latter bits of Series 6?
I feel like, yeah, definitely. I feel like I don't know how I managed a group of people throughout Series 6 because my skills are just so much better. Not just from learning stuff at uni, but my job at the moment as a team leader and looking after 20 plus people. Like how anyone could ever stand to be in a room with me before 2021 is, I don't know how, but now it's a lot more, I feel like the calls are a lot more funner and I know how they're planned out and I know how to approach people and talk to people. Just securing the Churchill actor or even the Danley, the Harry Ash character. That was just so executed really well, and it I felt really pleased with it. And yeah, like with Series 6, it was I talk a lot about this to Tom Ford and Tom Skinner quite recently, that with Series 6, 1 week you'd be filming episode 5, and then the next week you'd be filming episode 1, and then you'd be filming episode 3, and it was just there was a lot going on. But Blip in Time was nice that for 10 months, that's all we thought about. Just 20 pages or however long it was, I can't remember, but we could just home in and focus on each shot, each frame, each take, each line, and really try and perfect it. And I think we got close to it.
Yeah, I think you did as well. I mean, it's a brilliant production, and the result I think speaks to a lot of the effort you guys went through in the last 10 months of planning this thing. I mean, especially like you went with this more of the approach of making a very strong short film, but that gets connected to the other stuff. Especially Tom, like you came in with more technical know-how, and your camera skills were phenomenal. I've been seeing behind the scenes stuff about all that, and I saw like you're using a new camera, a new steady gimbal thing. I claim to know these things. I don't really.
No, I don't know a huge amount myself. But yeah, no, I think just in uni there was like such a there's such a height or realization reached in technicality, and I think I was just like trying to do what I could to like really just up those get those standards. Obviously it's a huge struggle because I think just going to film school, there's you've got all your resources, and it's gutting to when you graduate you suddenly don't have access to any of those anymore. But yeah, you try and apply what you have learned and all that. I think it's funny looking back at it now. I remember like a lot of the shots I was taking, I was just like sort of mimicking from shots I was really pleased with from uni, which maybe isn't the best approach, but it's just like kind of funny how a lot of the reflection from uni was brought into it. And challenging to keep standards up, but I think it was still just great just getting out and filming again, because it had been a while since uni, I think.
Yeah, I get you completely. I mean, I went to uni as well, I went to film school as well, and I get like those standards. for better or for worse, they stick with you, and it's sometimes when you go back into stuff like this here, it can be a bit difficult because you want to make stuff you want like this here, but at the same time, you also want to go at it with the knowledge that you've gained. Yeah. But like in my personal opinion, this is this A Blip in Time looked phenomenal. It's one of the best looking fan films I've ever seen, and and that's down to like you guys there. I remember like when you guys were going through the edits, when we had some of those meetings, it was difficult to because like there's so many good shots that you guys were finding it difficult to fit all them in.
Yeah. I remember oh.
No, I was just gonna say you kind of got to like just try and prioritize story, but yeah, it's just one of the gutsy things in the end, isn't it? You know, it's like, yeah, it's pretty, but we don't need it. Bye. So
yeah, I remember there was so much footage on the cutting room floor that you could probably do A Blip in Time like 3-4 more times just using those alternative takes. You know, there was just so many because we were very fortunate. We had some locations for a very long time, and because it was short and a condensed script, we could really take our time and get as much coverage as possible. Yeah,
I'm very greedy when it comes to shooting, and I love to shoot a bit too much. I'm like, oh, but this.
Yeah,
there might be you guys might get a trend going. # release the extended cut.
Oh yes, yeah.
Oh no,
that would be cool. There were some small lines. There were a few small lines that were cut, but nothing much. It was a lot of like alternative takes of just this shot a little longer or a different establishing shot. But yeah, so much fun. Yeah.
A lot of the shots were like just letting things breathe for a while. Like Winston coming in out of his office, that was a nice shot. Especially like that, a couple of nice shots of Damley were really nicely done. There was a lot of like breathing room with these shots that let you really just take it all in, especially.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah,
I remember I'll just chuck this in there that I rewatched A Blip in Time the other day, but I decided to watch it on my computer and not on YouTube. And oh my God, YouTube compresses the hell out of it. It really ruins it. Like I'm glad people enjoying A Blip in Time.
Don't get YouTube on us. They'll ban us. They'll take us out.
I mean YouTube's only obviously, but I was watching it. I was watching it in its raw format and its MOV just on my computer, and I even froze a frame on YouTube, and I froze an identical frame in the MOV, and I flicked between tabs, and I was like, oh my God. No one's going to get to see this beauty unless we get it on something else.
It's not just YouTube though. It's different devices, different screens. Yeah. It drives you mad.
Let's move to Vimeo.
Yeah, I was literally going to suggest Vimeo because Vimeo's compression rates are not as bad as YouTube's.
Yeah,
I think Vimeo has very little to no compression. Like I remember, I think it was Matt Reeves when he was promoting the Batman. He purposely made sure that there was a version of the trailer that was in ProRes 4K on his Vimeo, so you can watch it at its most grainiest.
Yeah,
the grain is so tangible in Vimeo. It's crazy.
Well, I'm looking it up when I get out of it.
I really recommend it. Those trailers look phenomenal in Vimeo, they really do. So I recommend you guys look into Vimeo. I may put that into the link into the main YouTube video.
Yeah,
they want to watch it in its true non-compressed form. Go see it there because it's beautiful. It really is.
Yeah,
without the 16K cut.
Yeah, and also trying to get like. Well, this would be harder to do, but trying to get like a theater and renting a screen and playing on the big screen in its true form, and just sitting there on my own probably and watching it. But that would be so cool. Yeah,
probably like you could probably do a showcase like the best of MB and Homeland and have that probably at the end. So just
maybe, yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. I very quickly threw together a 60-year anniversary tribute of MB and Homeland that I was going to release on the 23rd of November. But I never released it just simply because it was jarring to watch. Because if you put A Blip in Time alongside anything else MB and Homeland, we're on a different level now. We've changed. Like you can't look at shots from Series 6 and then compare it to the Churchill walking through the banqueting room or the doctor running across the field. Like there's something it's almost like putting it alongside a different show. I don't associate them together in a weird way, if you get what I mean.
Whoops, I've overdone it. Damn it.
So yeah,
It's
which
like
is a shame, but yeah.
It's sort of like the comparison you make with like 2005 Doctor Who to 2023 Doctor Who. It's the same show, but time has been kinder to the most recent stuff.
Yeah, visually, yeah.
But
point proven. 2005 stuff is so fantastic.
Oh yeah, I love 2005 stuff. I miss the sort of, I don't know what it is about 2005 stuff. It just looks, it looks more real, if you know what I mean. More visceral, like tangible. Anyway, moving on, because gotta keep to a time schedule here. I also want to discuss to you guys about the idea, because you had Gigi write the script for this one, and I remember when we were talking about this, you were saying like she was writing the script, and she wanted to have it based upon a historical figure. Also don't have Gigi on the podcast with us at the moment, unfortunately. But what can you guys talk to us about the generating of the idea of this Minnesota, about like where would the sort of origins of it be, and when did you decide to put the Irish Doctor in it?
Yeah, it's very interesting because I don't entirely know. Like from memory, she basically just one day said, "I'm writing a Doctor Who script. You don't have to do anything with it, but you can if you want." And I think we'd already been chatting Daniel just generally as we do. And I think I might have mentioned your name, and we've obviously had a history on Instagram where you might put on your channel, ask a question, and I might say, collaborate with MB Homeland, collaborate, and then, so it'd always been in the back of our head that it was like, oh, Daniel really wants to work with us. We really want to work with Daniel. So, well, here's a Doctor, Gigi, if you want the Irish Doctor. I think it wouldn't have worked with any other Doctor, I won't lie. I think it was made for your Doctor.
I'm glad to hear about that, yeah. Because I think, like, if you look at the story of the Irish Doctor, it does match very much where Callum's Doctor is at that sort of moment of time. Because
exactly, yeah.
The Irish Doctor's gone through similar loss in his life, so I think character-wise, that was a good combination to pull.
Yeah.
I wanted to go into more details about, especially the Winston Churchill and Damley actors, because they were phenomenal along with Callum. Like the casting for this episode was on point.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, I think it's a real shame that obviously for those of you who don't know the story and skip ahead if you don't want to hear spoilers, but a previous companion leaves his phone in the past and Winston Churchill stumbles upon it. And we did actually film a scene where Isabella left her phone in the past and then Hitler stumbled upon it. But we never got to release that version. I'm only kidding, obviously. I'd be so stupid.
I was like a moment there, being like, hang on, who's playing Hitler? Was I there for that?
Oh God.
That would have been rough. Anyway, so the Churchill actor was obviously very hard to find. I looked at impersonators. Well, actually, I first started with Ian Diamond because that was your suggestion, Daniel.
Yeah,
not
potentially get him
Ian
involved.
nice. Yeah, and I messaged him. I didn't get a reply. I messaged his agent. Didn't get a reply. I sent a follow-up, and then like a second later, yeah, sorry, not interested. Fair enough. I respect that. And then it was sort of working down the chain of just Googling Winston Churchill lookalike based in the UK, messaging them. One was charging a lot of money. I didn't want to go with him. I spoke to Steve. Steve sent an email right away saying that he was keen, he was very interested. And then I didn't hear from him for about a month, and I did actually get quite worried. And this is probably a good life lesson for those of you out there who want to work with actors. Ring them, because I rang him and he picked up and we spoke for about an hour. And obviously it's weird that we live in a generation now where everyone is, I'm going to sound like such a boomer, everyone's obsessed with their phones, but when their phone rings, no one wants to answer it. It's like, oh my God, who's that? I don't know who this is, So getting on the phone and talking to someone, there's a lot of pressure with that, there's a lot of anxiety with that. I get that. I suffer from it. But you got to do it. And people can ignore an email, but it's hard to ignore a phone call. So chatting with him was great, and touching on the Harry Ash, the character of Damley, he was an interesting one because we put out a casting call And we didn't mention in it at all that it was to do with Doctor Who. We said that it was for a World War II short film. And so we had about 20 people apply, maybe about half auditioned, and then we narrowed it down to the final 3. I sound cool with the 3 people individually. One person sussed out that I worked on Doctor Who in the past, so he was not a no-go, but I was like, uh-oh, this is kind of a secret. And then the second person showed up 45 minutes late to the interview, so he was no. And then the third person, who funnily enough was the first person I interviewed, was Harry Ash. Wonderful man, great guy, local to our area, but also commuting back and forth to Nottingham. Yeah, really amazing guy, and a guy we'd love to work with in the future, not necessarily just on potential more Doctor Who. Obviously, we have raised the question of who Danley is, and I'm sure people want an answer. But just collaborating with him in general, I think he's a fantastic guy. And I just found out recently that through working on this project, he's been noticed, and an agency's noticed him. He's just got an agent now. So you know, through making this, we've actually helped an actor start their career.
That's great. I mean, like, at the end of the day, like, we always do these things to hopefully be a stepping stone to a broader career, and I'm glad to hear for him that was a success. That's great.
Yeah. And did you enjoy working with them, Tom?
They were great, yeah. I mean, it's really funny because obviously, like, all I know of Steve now is just his Churchill's voice, but he sounds completely different in real life when I just have a conversation with him, which is crazy. All the stories he had as well, like because Mark, he was in the army, wasn't he? Yes.
He was in the Falklands. He had been in a short film with Colin Baker. He had met Sylvester Stallone.
He'd auditioned for Darkest Hour. Honestly, he did.
He auditioned for Darkest Hour, and the director liked him, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they were very impressed that they'd given him like a script of like Churchill's speech or something like that. But then in the audition room, he just put it down and just said it, and they were just like, "Sorry, did you just memorize that?" I was like, no, I know the speech. And he just did it, which apparently blew their socks off.
Quite literally.
Yeah. Yeah, Harry was great as well. Yeah, I think it's funny because I think, well, for me at least, it was like between him and one other guy, and I think, yeah, I think he, I'm trying to remember it now. No, he, I think what I liked about going for Harry was the fact he came, you know, he had the kind of like appearance and charisma of a good guy, but then, you know, when spoilers, he turns out a bit more malicious, then he could really kind of like turn on that kind of intimidating presence, which I think worked really well.
When he spoke to me, I think his accent changes. He loses his accent when he changes, you know. So just small details like that. He really revised the script. And it's just a bro, you know.
Yeah, he loves getting involved as well, which is great. We were on a bit of a skeleton crew, so he took over clapperboard here and there as well, and just started just helping shift stuff around, which is great.
Yeah,
so
bless him.
Yeah,
well, he sounds great. Yeah, and in terms of everything else, we were doing, like, you guys had a couple of days of filming, like, on locations. You had the I can't remember what was, like, the manor house scenes, and then you had the field. But then we also had a day where we filmed the Irish Doctor stuff, and that was remote filming.
Yeah.
And spoiler alert, I was very unwell during that time. I was actually in hospital the week before because I was very, very, very ill. So I think even if you look at the footage, you can see I have a slight blood bleed in my eye from the illness.
Yeah, a bit of bloodshot eye. Yeah. So
we always put that down to dimensional thing that compressed the bloodshot in the Doctor's eye.
It popped one eye. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
All right. Looks like we have 10 minutes left on our call.
Oh dear.
So we need to talk about final bits and pieces. It's gonna be fun. We have a countdown now, which is scary, but exhilarating. I think we gotta talk about our last little bits. I think we need to talk about more bits about the writing, because I think we passed through that a little bit, especially about Gigi and who she is in terms of the production. So, Mark, can you talk to us about Gigi, please?
Yeah, of course. So I met Gigi 3 years ago, coming up to 4 years this November. I went on a date with her. when it was I met her through Tinder, shockingly. And it was a date on my sister's birthday. And not having gone on many dates in my life, I will admit, I remember saying to my sister, I won't be able to attend your birthday, you know, I've got this date. But because it's so rare that I go on dates, she was like, oh, fine, nothing's going to come of this. And then we're together 3 years later. So it's always awkward when we have an anniversary where we celebrate half of it at my sister's and then go off and have a meal or whatever. But in terms of the production, she was the writer of the story. She has a master's degree in creative writing. Funnily enough, Harry Ash does as well, from 2 different universities. So they were very helpful when it came to storytelling. Gigi knows what she's doing when it comes to scripts. There were very small changes to the overall story, like when we first did the first draft. It was trying to primarily just cut down a few little bits that maybe pacing was off, or trying to find out motives, you know, not necessarily writing them. You know, we didn't have to write, why is Danley doing this? We didn't have to write, why is the Irish Doctor here? But as long as the writer knows why they're there, then if the actors ask, you can tell them, and the actor will act knowing it, even if it's not told on screen. You know, they're going to act a completely different way.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
The more information they can get, the better. But I'd always been against collaborating with a partner making content, because I'm sure Tom Ford will remember that there was an individual I did date for a little while, and I overloaded her with, you should appear in this, and you should appear in that, and you should do this, and you should do that. And for better or for worse, things ended. And then obviously suddenly it's like, oh my God, I've got to find replacement for this role and that role. And, you know, you don't want to put pressure on them. So Gigi's always had her thing, which is writing. I've always had my thing, which is producing or editing. And so 3 years had gone by, and it was like, yeah, why not? She's down to write a story. She presented it to me. She handed it to me, and she said, do whatever you want with it. And here we are.
Very good. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, it sounds like a partnership built on heaven, to be honest.
I hope so, yeah. And you know,
a writer who loves to write and a producer who loves to produce. I mean, that's a match
yeah,
in heaven, isn't it?
that is, yes, yeah. Amen. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
So I think for the last 5 minutes of this podcast, we should talk about the future, because a lot of things are up in the air, especially after a blip in time, where things haven't been resolved, but can be left if you wish. But also there are things there you can expand upon if you wish to. So tell me, are there any active plans for another MB and Homeland episode? Series 7? The shock on Mark's face says everything. Or anything else?
Yeah, I don't know whether I should answer this or Tom, because Tom's just taken over as CEO.
What?
To not give anything away, we had a cool Sunday. It was our first call of the year. We'd had our self-reflection call on A Blip in Time, where we got to talk about what went well, what didn't. Everyone is hungry and full of ideas, some more than others. We threw probably, I want to say, 6 ideas into that call. That's not to say there's going to be 6 episodes coming out this year, or 6 specials, or whatever you want to call them. But there are 6 ideas at the moment, maybe more to come in the coming weeks. And we're going to try and see which ones are good, whittle it down, and just try and make the things that really stand out. Whether that be a special a year, so you might get another one this November, I don't know. Or whether we want to develop something that's a little bit more longer, more fleshed out. A lot of the fans are asking for that they loved The Blip in Time. They thought it was great, but it wasn't long enough. So a lot of the fans are saying, can we get something a little bit longer? So maybe another special that is double the length or something like that. But I'd rather not pad it for the sake of it. If it's good, and that is it. There's no topping it. But yeah, that's all I can really say. But it all depends on the coming months, because I'm probably speaking for Tom Ford a little bit here as well, but we're kind of waiting on some job offers to get back to us and stuff like that. So not to say that we can't make stuff on the side, but it might limit the amount of time we can focus on MB and Homeland if we're in a film career or something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
we both have full-time jobs at the moment and we're able to do it, so I can't see a reason not, but we'll see. That's all I can say.
Film industry is all different.
Yeah.
So
Film industry demands everything: your soul, your life.
but listen,
Yeah.
I was a VFX artist for for a BBC show. I get you.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. But yes, so what I'm getting at there is basically Series 7 confirmed and everyone pestered them. I'm
I
joking.
think,
So what I'm getting
yeah,
is really is life is the main priority going forward, but there's time and there's an idea and the creative urge, something may come of that.
yeah, and I feel like unlike a blip in time, which was a surprise, not just for the fans, but for friends and family, this time around, I think once we know what we're going to make, we will make it public as soon as possible. Maybe even potentially crowdfund it, get new crowd, meet new cast, meet new crew, go all out. But it's early days. But watch the space. Yeah.
Indeed. Well, thank you much, both you guys for joining me on the podcast. It was great talking to you both and reflecting on some of the bits of the production and the pre-production of A Blip in Time. Sadly, we couldn't get through everything because it only fits so much into a 30-minute section of a podcast.
I
But
would love to plug one thing before you go immediately down.
yeah, we have 2 minutes to go on.
Tom Ford's show reel. If we can get it in the description of this video, and go check out Tom Ford's work, not just on this project but on many others.
If
Yeah.
we can, we'll definitely put it in the description. If not, we'll just
Where's this coming from? Don't put me in the spot.
I thought it was great. I thought it was fantastic.
Well, cheers, you're too kind. Oh, God, now I'll see if I can. Oh, Mark, love you.
Me too.
Well, Tom, you're a phenomenal cameraman, and so it will plug that in, happily plug that in.
Thank you.
Oh, cheers, mate.
But yeah, again, thank you guys very much for joining us on the podcast. If there's no other final words, if you just any final goodbyes, now is your time to say them.
Just cheers. That has been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. And hopefully we get to work together in the future or in the past.
Yeah, what?
Time travel.
All right, thank you guys very much, and back to me and Connor on the podcast. Again, this is my first interview in a while. I'm still working out the transition.
And welcome back to the podcast.
You could definitely tell that's my first interview in a while.
How long has it been since you did a little interview now?
It's been years, man, years. I mean, I haven't done one since I came back, and I haven't done one before in the last couple months since I left. So it's definitely been at least 2 to 3 years since I've done one.
Wow, fair play, fair play. Well, I think considering, that you hadn't done it for a little while, I think you did quite well either way, so.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Indeed, indeed. But yeah, so in all, we've had a very busy month. We've been doing stuff with Dwem, the Doctor Expansive Multiverse. You've been doing some visual effects for that minisode that it will be coming out in February. And we've also, been working on multiple other projects. One of them I can definitely mention is Torchwood. I know that you've kind of been driven mad by James Sutton, haven't you?
Sutton.
There you go. See everyone.
He feels my pain. He gets off on it.
Oh,
Sick bastard.
Oh my goodness. Oh dear. Oh, goodness gracious. But yes. So I don't know. I can't. What is there anything else we need to mention for this month?
Nothing I can think of other than just like first podcast of the year. Like projects coming up this year, as you mentioned, Torchwood. It's mainly Fractured Timeline for me, getting that because hopefully this is the year that Fractured Timeline finishes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm still writing the finale as we speak. So I'm trying to juggle that, plus work commitments, plus working with your good self, sir.
Indeed.
So we shall see how this year goes, but this could be the year that all Irish Doctor content finishes.
Oh,
I will remember you.
oh my.
But yeah, hopefully we can have a nice 2024. Now we're past the 60th year. Hopefully things will be a bit more chill because it was just so many big projects coming up towards the end of the year so fast that I think we were just swept off our feet a little bit there.
Yes, yes, I agree. I agree.
So I'm looking forward to a more chill year with more casual releases, more sitting back and just be able to discuss about things that don't involve multiversal or universal destructive plots.
Yes, 100%.
Despite how
100%.
entertaining they may be.
Yes. Yes, indeed. 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 Yes. Yes.
Either though, this is a bit late for everyone else, but yep, Happy New Year, everyone, and I don't think there's much else really to say. How about you, sir?
No, I can't think of anything myself.
Anyway, shall we end the podcast to a cheers to a good 2024, my good friend?
Yes, cheers.
Cheers. We're not in the same room. This is metaphorical. There is no beverages at all. We're very ill prepared. But yes, to 2024 and beyond, and we will see you guys next month.
Farewell.
Farewell.